Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. Please like and subscribe. More importantly, become a member to the channel. It's only $2.99 a month at the lowest level. And if you enjoy my content, what's less than $1 a week? I would really appreciate it, man. Let's get this community up to about 2,000 or 3,000 members. I hope it'd be even better if everybody became a member. But if you enjoy my content, I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, Agit, Kabayel, Moses Itauma, Oleksandr, Usyk, Joseph Parker. There's a lot going on in the heavyweight division. But I just did a video on Joseph Parker, and I thought it was only right to do a video on Agit Kabayel. I've done many on him, but I've been so busy talking about Canelo and Terrence Crawford that I said, let me kind of throttle back at least for 24 hours and give y'all something different. Now, Agit Kabayel is a guy. To me, he came out of nowhere, rose from obscurity to put himself on the map in the heavyweight division. In case you didn't know, he's the WBC interim heavyweight champion. 26 wins, 18 knockouts. He can scrap, he has power, and he doesn't just headhunt, he works the body. So he has proven to be a problem and a serious threat in the heavyweight division. None of those guys, you can't bet against him. Like me, I'm afraid. I don't gamble anyway, but if you ask me who would I put my money on, I would not want to. I'd probably put my money on Kabayel, but I would not want to bet on someone else or bet against him. The thing is, he's done enough to earn himself a big opportunity, but he does not have a fight officially scheduled. But the heavyweight division is buzzing about his next move for obvious reasons, okay? Now, what he did to Zhilei Zhang by stopping the big man in the 6th round in February, people are still trying to process that because you see Kabayel, he looks simple, but there's nothing simple about him. To withstand getting knocked down by Zhang, then to come back and just keep breaking his body down and getting a stoppage. That's helped to position him as one of the most recognized fighters in the heavyweight division and to put the whole heavyweight division on notice that he's probably the most dangerous body puncher and a legitimate threat to anyone he fights, and that includes Oleksandr Usyk. So, potential opponents for Kabayel's next fight. Obviously Usyk, I don't think that's going to happen, but Usyk is the unified heavyweight champion. He's the undisputed. He's the big dog. The likelihood of him fighting Kabayel, I think there's more of a chance of him fighting Joseph Parker, but I don't think he's going to fight Parker. So I would say there's a moderate chance. But we just got to understand Kabayel's a WBC interim champion. Joseph Parker's a WBO interim. But Usyk is the big dog with the WBC title. So if things don't work out with Parker, knowing how Mauricio Suleiman is, next thing you know, Usyk could be obligated to face Kabayel. But if he doesn't pursue a trilogy with Tyson Fury or Daniel Dubois. So Kabayel's relentless body attack and pressure style could pose a unique challenge to Usyk's footwork and timing. But again, I just think Usyk at this point in his career, he's not really worried about fighting guys like Kabayel to potentially be a springboard for them to go on to bigger and better things in the heavyweight division. I really think Usyk is just, let me make as much money possible. The AJ and Fury fights, probably very enticing, probably very intriguing. So I could see him dropping his belts if he had to and just going after a Fury or Usyk fight. But nonetheless, there's a reason why he'd be avoiding Agit Kabayel, because Agit Kabayel is a problem. Now, could Kabayel face Joseph Parker? Look, I guess there's a chance. If for some reason Usyk, whatever lingering issues that he has as far as injuries, if he wasn't granted the extension of, for some reason, what the doctors report is that Usyk won't be back in the ring for 6 months or so. You just never know how this goes, especially when the secret society is in full effect. You could see Kabayel and Parker fight. So the likelihood of that fight happening is very, very high. You see, it really comes down to Usyk delaying mandatory obligations. A guy like Kabayel fought in February. We're going into September. He wants to get in the ring, and he doesn't care who he fights. So Kabayel versus Parker could become a title unification or an eliminator. It just depends on if Usyk drops the WBO and WBC belt, or he's allowed to, skirt the system, and now you force Parker and Kabayel and one more tough fight for each other to try to get a shot at Usyk, which I just think would be wrong. But the story is both Parker and Kabayel are in peak form. We know what happened with Parker and Bacoli, Wilder and Zhang. So I think a Kabayel-Parker clash would be a rematch of styles, where you got Kabayel with the great pressure, body punching, and Parker, again, timing and movement. Another possible opponent for Kabayel, it could be Moses Itauma. So you just don't know, but I think Parker would get stuck with Itauma before Kabayel, because I think Kabayel would be more of a threat to Itauma than Joseph Parker. And the Secret Society wants Moses Itauma to become a champion so he can go on and do great things in the heavyweight division. So the bottom line, the 13-0 with 11 KOs, Moses Itauma, the likelihood of him fighting Kabayel, I mean, it's speculative. You know what I'm saying? It's just a conversation. But it keeps growing because no one knows what's happening next with all these names that I'm throwing at you. But Antonio Tarver came out and he said, look, man, Itauma needs to face a live body. Throw him in there with Kabayel to test his mettle. Now, I do think Kabayel's a tougher test than Joseph Parker. I just think stylistically would be very interesting. You got to understand the experience, the toughness, and the IQ that Kabayel brings. So it would be a major step up for Moses Itauma. We saw what he did with Dillian White, destabilized, tranquilized him, just totally dismantled him. Some people say Dillian White was fading. He was a faded fighter. There was no challenge to Itauma. Look, I don't know about all that, but I do know that Dillian White wasn't in peak shape. He's not in his prime, and Moses Itauma did what he was supposed to do. A guy who doesn't belong in the ring with you, you're supposed to get him up out of there. So if Itauma fought Kabayel, I think that'll be a very high-risk fight for both of those guys, where you can see Kabayel derailing what some people would call the hype train, the Itauma hype train, or Itauma could, announce himself as elite. Because let me tell you something, beating Kabayel, it's a whole lot of credit and praise that comes with that victory. You got to understand Kabayel's style and strengths. Pressure fighter, constant forward movement, especially to the body. He's durable, never been stopped or seriously hurt. He got the ring IQ, smart pacing, adjusts well mid-fight. And in recent form, KO wins in 3 of his last 4, including the way he finished Zhang, which still blows my mind. So when you start talking about a strategic outlook with a guy like Kabayel, I just think Kabayel's team is going to weigh the risk versus the reward. You fight Usyk, possibility of legacy and belts. You fight Parker, it offers some momentum and positioning to go on to bigger and better. Fight with Itauma offers visibility, chance to crush a rising star. But the bottom line, Kabayel fighting all 3 of those guys, they're all dangerous. And I think the most valuable asset is Kabayel's undefeated record, so he's probably going to go with what his team perceives as the low-hanging fruit. So I just think if he fights a guy like Itauma, it's a pressure test, Itauma has all these gifts, all these talents. They compare him to Mike Tyson. But that's not reality, okay? That's just marketing. But I do think, stylistically, the fast hands of Itauma, the sharp timing, I think it'll be on display. But remember, he's untested under real pressure. Kabayel brings real pressure, real durability, real punching power. Very, very interesting. A tactical edge for a guy like Kabayel facing Itauma is push Itauma into deep waters. Round 7 through 12 could break that illusion of invincibility that is surrounding Moses Itauma. If Itauma loses power, if he loses confidence, if he's forced to move, and Kabayel's body work is touching him up, you could see Itauma lose his legs and confidence. And if Itauma can't hurt Kabayel to get his respect, Kabayel could win. So I think he has a good opportunity and a good shot at upsetting Itauma, but we won't know unless they get in the ring. Now, as far as Kabayel and Joseph Parker, that's more experience versus volume. That's a razor close matchup, man. They're both interim champions on career best runs. I mean, whatever I say about Kabayel, I can say about Parker. I mean, them guys is like the imprint of each other. But the style clash would be, again, Kabayel with that underrated ring IQ, volume, pressure, body shot stamina. Parker, stamina, fast hands, good footwork, elite experience, has a really good chin. And the reality is, whether you like it or not, Parker's more polished, but Kabayel is more persistent. If Parker controls the distance, he can keep the fight clean because Kabayel will fight dirty, you know. Parker could win on points, no doubt. But if that shit turns into a mashup, crash-up, turns into a trench war, you know, Kabayel will probably overwhelm and beat Parker just with his activity. So we just have to sit back and see. You know, when you start comparing these two, Kabayel, 69% KO ratio, Parker, 67% KO ratio. Kabayel has an 80-inch reach, Parker's a 76. Kabayel's a pressure fighter, Parker's a boxer puncher. So, I don't know, I kind of lean towards Parker, the edge on points. But I could see Kabayel coming on, especially in the middle rounds, slowing Parker down, and all of a sudden the scorecards get flipped. So the bottom line, Kabayel is probably the most dangerous heavyweight for anyone, especially Usyk, Itauma, and Joseph Parker. He's not a hype train, he's a grinder. And I just think anyone who gets in there with him will have to pass the pressure test. And that pressure test that he administers, a very low passing rate. The passing rate is 0. Nobody's been able to pass the test. So anyone underestimating Agit Kabayel will regret it. That being said, y'all keep cool, become a member to the channel. Shout out to the veterans 7 continents. Become a member to the channel though, all right? I'm in the breeze.